First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the meeting is today on Aboriginal land, the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, has always been, is now, and always was Aboriginal land. And in saying that, I'd like you to think about what we have already done and what WestConnex may also do to that land and the land on which we've been living. There are three purposes for today. Firstly, that people come together to be aware of what is happening with WestConnex, not just in our own local region, but wider still. So to be aware of what's happening, what's proposed, and also what has happened in other areas of WestConnex's engagement. Secondly, to be informed, and that's why we've invited a range of speakers here today, some of whom are going to talk about things that will be new to you, others of whom you will already know but be refreshed. And I believe that there's no harm in repeating a message twice or even 3 times. And thirdly, the third purpose is to be active. So to be aware, to be informed, and to be active. And in being active, we're hoping that we will have some more volunteers with the Camperdown Residents Against WestConnex. We've been relying very heavily on those from other groups, and increasingly there are more people coming into the Craw Facebook and also into the Craw community of activists.
I wanted to begin by acknowledging that we are here on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and we should remember that, and I wish to acknowledge any Aboriginal people that are here with us today. Every time we speak at a community meeting like this, every time we come together as a community at risk of the polluting, toxic tollway that is WestConnex, we see that there are more people that join that weren't aware of it previously, and we see familiar faces of people that have been campaigning on this long before I was a part of this campaign. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. And I was at the Leichhardt Secondary College this morning at an action around WestConnex, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that while some communities are just becoming, as was pointed out by Leslie, aware of it, there are many communities that have been aware of it for a very long time, that have been facing incredible challenges as a result of it, and have become very active and are very much against the project because of the serious concerns they have. And I'd be safe to say that I've yet to come across someone that has not become aware of WestConnex that isn't very soon to be against WestConnex, because when you look at the logic, when you look at the information, it is very difficult to see how you could be aware of what the state government is proposing and still remain neutral on the project itself. So I wanted to take you a bit of an overview to tell you why I don't think it's too late to stop this WestConnex polluting toll road impacting on our local communities. But I also wanted to give you a bit of a picture about where we're currently at and why we're in this situation. WestConnex is a 33 kilometre approximately road that will cost the state government in the order of $16.8 billion. When it was announced, to put it in perspective, it was a $10 billion project, and every year since then in the budget we have seen that figure raise higher and higher and higher, and in the state budget this year I imagine we will see that cost blow out again, or we will see, as we have seen in the past, costs hidden in other parts of the state budget so the WestConnex budget doesn't continue to blow out. The project is considered to be a state significant infrastructure project, which means that the minister gets the final sign-off. So it basically means, despite the dodginess of the fact that we haven't seen a full business case, despite all the questions that have been raised about the traffic modelling, about the cost-benefit ratio, about all of the information that has been publicly available, what we know is that actually at the end of the day, none of that matters, because this is a political decision by the minister, who is empowered to be able to approve this project despite the fact that it will not do the things that the state government is setting out that it should do. And one example of that, and I just want to go into a bit of detail for a second, is around the business case. So you're talking a $16.8 billion project. that it is by far the largest infrastructure project happening now in Australia. And we have not seen a business case that actually gives the level of detail that planners and people that are engaging with this infrastructure have ever seen the detail of. Basically, it's come in on a situation which is basically a P50, which means that there's a 50% chance that it won't come in on budget. So that's a $16.8 billion project that has not actually had a business case put forward that is putting that level of detail. In addition to that, what we're seeing is that the plans for the project overall have been submitted in stages. So you might have heard about the stages of WestConnex. So you've got stage 1, you've got stage 2, and you've got stage 3. They connect. Stage 3 will connect and is the current sort of focus and what Leslie was talking about in terms of the draft design, which is the tunnel that's allegedly supposed to link the M4 with the M5 and make everything wonderful and great. That was sarcasm if you couldn't tell. This tunnel has not got a draft design. It doesn't have any planning approval. It doesn't have any funding. So why are we here talking about it? We're talking about it because what this state government is doing is they want to deliver this whole motorway, but they don't want to have to face the reality that the cost and the feasibility and the reality of what will happen when they build this massive tunnel under our neighbourhoods will not add up. Not in terms of the traffic benefits, not in terms of the environmental impact, not in terms of the cost it will be for the community to deliver this road. So what they've done is they've done stage 1 and they've said, well, let's look at the impact of stage 1. And then they've said, oh, okay, and we'll do stage 2, and then let's look at the impact of stage 2. Meanwhile, just to say, in stage 1 and stage 2, large, significant councils put in 80 to 100-page documents raising serious concerns about the modelling and the environmental impact, and they were completely ignored. 10,000 odd people made submissions saying, we don't want this motorway, and yet they still went ahead and rubber-stamped it and approved it anyway. But leaving all of that aside, the impact of the whole 33-kilometre road has never been assessed. The detail that is there to actually look at it as a whole infrastructure project has never happened. Thank you. So then where we're at is a scenario where none of that has been looked at in detail. But there is a plus side, and I might ask for a minute and a half so I can give the plus side, otherwise I've just given you the really depressing bit without the rest. There is a plus side, and that is that despite the fact that when you drive down Parramatta Road or you're driving around St Peters and you see these big fences with these glossy signs saying WestConnex, and you're like, well, it's happened already, it's done, right? It's ready, where's the open?
Bringing the communities
Totally.
together.
Apparently they bring the community together. In the ones down at St Peters, it's hard to tell what the original sign says because people have graffitied over them so much with other messages that it's hard to tell what it was originally. But these signs and the ads that I believe are showing in Dendy now are basically telling you WestConnex is here, right? It's pretty much over. Why are you even coming to a public meeting? Why are you joining a protest? Well, I can tell you now that it is not over. It is so far from over. The tunnel that links the M4 to the M5 according to their plans does not even have draft plans released. There is no planning approval granted, and they have no funding to fund the tunnel. In addition to that, if you look at the detail for a second, the M4 East tunnel isn't due on their own timetable for completion until 2019. Only about 2 kilometres of the 6.5 kilometres of the tunnel, of that bit of work, has actually been completed, and it's the easy bit that is the above ground bit, not the tunnel. If you look at it in terms of the new M5, that is not due for completion until 2020. And basically what you're looking at is potentially about 20% of that project have already been completed. So the bits that have been approved are only a tiny amount of them have already been done. And the largest, most devastating part of the project that they have no funding for has not even had draft plans yet released, let alone had planning approval. And so what the big message today, whether it's the risks to this community in Camperdown, whether it's the risks to the communities that are currently facing the devastation, and the message that I am asking you all to get out there is that this is not over. This is not done. Do not believe when you hear in the media that we have to choose between a dive site here to build a tunnel and a midpoint tunnelling here, that that's the only choice that we have left. because that's not the choice that we have left. That's the choice they want you to believe is all that you have left available to you. But in actual fact, on their own measure, this tunnel doesn't get complete till 2023. There are a lot of elections between now and 2023, and on the rate we go through premiers in this state, there are a lot of premiers between now and 2023. So do not think for a second that this is over. Listen to what the people here are saying, but the most important thing you can do is to talk to people and say this is not a done deal, and get active and join the campaign, because together we can stop WestConnex from destroying this community, but also stop it from having any other devastating effects to any other community across Sydney. Thank you very much.
I'm resident of Haberfield, fourth house from a major WestConnex construction zone for the Wattle and Ramsay Street, what would be the tunnel interchange there. I opposed the M4 East project from the first announcement and have been active since 2014 as a resident. I'm a member of the Haberfield Association and WestConnex and Save Ashfield Park groups, and also a member of a Walker Avenue neighbourhood group which meets with construction site managers, and the Inner West WestConnex, the Inner West Council WestConnex Community Liaison Forum. Both these latter groups meet monthly. There are many big issues with the whole infrastructure project, but I'm focusing today on those which impact on residents living close to a construction site. I confess from the outset that I had no idea about the scale and massive impacts on the residential amenity of the construction phase. And this may endure for residents for another 5 years. Initially, resident concerns focused on property resumptions and values. Then, as we gained the requisite legal advice on this and were clear about which properties were to be resumed, we moved to a broader action around those to be demolished, over 60 homes. All houses in a heritage area, all houses in the immediate construction zone were offered dilapidation reports so that there was a status picture of your home before construction commenced. Then we attended community information sessions, examined available documents, made submissions, wrote to premiers and ministers, made representations to local members and to council, held public meetings, door-knocked and leafleted residents, rallied and protested, etc. We saved Ashfield Park, but lost elsewhere, and that is the reality. And then council amalgamations were announced, and what a bit of bastardry that was on the part of the government. It effectively disempowered residents or left one channel of protest destroyed. However, I've got to acknowledge here that Richard Pearson has done his level best to represent community views. Submissions were made on concept plans for stage 1, and we awaited the release of the EIS. We were and are never idle. Eternal vigilance is the price you have to pay if you want to have any influence on what actually happens during the construction phase in the area in which you live. That means night and day patrols of sites, pop-up protests and occupations, and we even had an organised bus tour of the entire site, the full length of the site, to get an appreciation of its residential and environmental impacts. The environmental impact statement, when it was released, was long and technically very, very detailed. You need assistance to wade through its hundreds of pages. You need technical assistance, you need expert advice. But focusing on the construction when it began, after the very, very emotionally disturbing demolition of houses. The construction feels initially like a foreign invasion. Loss of heritage housing stock, environmental degradation, vegetation removal, loss of wildlife habitat, increase in vermin like rats. We've just experienced that. That's actual. I've never seen one of the local native. I hadn't seen one before in our area, and now we've got 4 or 5 of them in our trees. Constant noise from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. with excavators, bulldozers, pile drivers, what are called eccentric rippers and cranes. Similar work at night on specified days for specified period. Night works happen on at least 3 days a week, and that's permissible on consecutive nights under the EIS. During the initial construction, vibration akin to an earth tremor caused by giant jackhammers breaking into sandstone bedrock. I understand shale is beneath here. That will make it worse, I think. Breaking into sandstone bedrock, threatening the structure of heritage buildings, not to mention the health effects of this kind of vibration. Now, we endured that for about 2 months. That has stopped now because they've gone deep enough for us not to feel any vibration. Masses of dust emissions and dirt settling in every nook and cranny of our homes, threatening the health of residents with breathing problems. The other issue there was people who sought for their houses to be actually cleaned. If they did it on a one-to-one basis with WestConnex, they got it done, and then they were sworn to secrecy about it. So if you ask for anything as a compensation for what's happened, they will usually ask you to sign a document to say we'll tell nobody else. Poor traffic management, semi-trailers and other industrial vehicles on our residential streets at all hours of the day and night, up to 6 truck movements per hour in peak periods. And because they are subcontractors hoping for as many loads a day as possible, they are often in a hurry or parked in local streets, one after the other, double Bs, very early or late into the night. Worker vehicles parked everywhere without any respect for local needs or priorities. Parking spaces required, not organised from the outset of the project. So there was something like 300 parking spaces short for the number of workers they were going to have on site. Noise walls and noise curtains inadequate to ameliorate level of operational noise, which is constant. Some difference, but not much. The acoustic ratings, however, are within the EIS compliance zone. So, tough. If you can't put up with it, if you've got some kind of health problem and you can't put up with it, too bad. Permanent or partial street closures, further increasing disruption to the local area. Ramsay Street, a major artery, has been closed since mid-January and probably will not be scheduled to reopen until the end of April and could be later because of rain. Utility disruption as pipes and wiring may have to be moved to accommodate tunnel or portals or just accommodate the construction. Once they go down, they find things that are not on current maps of where utilities are located, and that causes further delays. Impact on local businesses and other service providers or institutions. No compensation for loss of trade is provided for in the project. And I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting recently in Haberfield, and they have suffered a 30 to 40% loss in trade since the Ramsay Road close. Bus stop closures or relocated bus stops without any real consultation with the community, so that the community isn't using the shuttle service that they've provided as an alternative, because they actually don't know where to go to catch them. Responses to all our representations, and I'd like to just say some of the positive things that came out of all the action. We have a local neighbourhood group which meets with the site manager and other WestConnex staff monthly. Policing of parking of worker vehicles was instigated, and it did make a huge difference. Polymer seals are sprayed on the dust piles. The WestConnex unit has been established in council, and Kendall Banfield and Rob Sherry, I think, are very responsive to anything we raise. Strict semi-trailer routes, because they will go anywhere to get to the job. And you have got to police that and be vigilant. So we've been taking photos of cars night and day. We patrol streets. Early advice of night work and other disruptions. The council set up the community liaison forum, and I think 2 representatives from Camperdown are on that forum. Early or prompter replies to our complaints. We are relentless, I have to tell you that. More extensive vibration monitoring and noise monitoring. our green colour, which was one of the most effective actions, we chose eucalyptus green for the plywood hoardings, and we got that. Constant email updates, construction of permanent noise walls has been brought forward, and we've been assured that that's going to happen by the end of June. Increased noise monitoring to ensure that EIS limits are not exceeded, but there is no real compensation for disruption or damage. Now and again you might get a cinema ticket, which was one of the derisory compensations they offered to residents who were so hopelessly inconvenienced and disrupted in their lives. You have to remember that is high-density residential. It's all possibly on ground level in Haberfield. We lost 3 blocks of units in the demolition, but it's all on ground level. So what we're experiencing is quite direct. We're not up high to avoid some of the greater and most serious impacts of it. But thank you very much.
Hello, first of all, I would like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand. And I would like to start off by thanking Leslie for drawing attention to this proposal in Camperdown, because you weren't really meant to be thinking about it now. There's been no consultation whatsoever with anyone in Camperdown about this proposal. On the 13th of August, there was an information session, if you can call it that, in Leichhardt. They didn't mention the proposed dive site in Leichhardt either. It was mentioned in passing. So neither your community in Camperdown or our community in Leichhardt has had any consultation so far. And so it's because of people like Leslie and the group supporting her that we have to now organise our own information sessions to find out what's coming. In terms of my interest in this project, I'm a resident of Leichhardt. I work with Catherine and Jennifer in Leichhardt Against WestConnex, and we've been working for 7 months to try and draw attention to what we knew was coming. They're getting their advice from the same people they're giving business to. I have never seen a project that has been so mismanaged and has so many question marks over it. This relates to the probity of the process, the legislation under which they're operating. The Liberal National Party introduced in 2011 Part 5.1 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, which replaced the notorious Part 3A, but it's just as bad, if not worse. And I want today to just give you a little bit of a rundown about where we are in the process and really where we are in terms of the law, and if there's something we can do following the process. And part of the process is the EIS and the design reference stage. Now, when a project is approved as critical state significant infrastructure, a whole lot of protections are removed. For example, the Coastal Protection Act, the Fisheries Management Act, the Heritage Act. Aboriginal heritage impact permits aren't required under the National Parks and Wildlife Act. You can forget about the Native Vegetation Act, the Rural Fires Act, the Water Management Act, and different parts of the Heritage Act. And if you want to challenge the approval, good luck with that, because you need the Minister's consent to challenge the approval. So in terms of what we can do with the approval of the project, there's not much, but we can work within the process to try to effect change where we can. And part of that process is the upcoming reference design stage in the EIS. Now, what has happened so far with the M4-M5 link is that they've lodged the State Significant Infrastructure Report and 2 addendums to it. The report was lodged in January 2016. The first addendum added in the Iron Cove Bridge, the Rozelle interchange. The first issue I have with this is that Rozelle is in stage 3. Stage 3 isn't approved yet. They've already announced they're taking 27 homes. They have a statutory process of consultation and approval that is very prescribed in the EPA, yet they've already announced they're going to be taking homes. I think everyone should have a big concern about that. The second change, which was just announced, was just covered off in the addendum but announced some time ago, was the removal of the Camperdown interchange. The impact of that on the business case has not been addressed. The impact of that on the residents in St Peter's and Haberfield has also not been addressed. I don't know how you can take off a third of a toll route and it has no impact on a project. And as Jenny pointed out, it was a heavily redacted business case and it took a long time for any of it to be released. The mainline tunnel configuration is now 4 lanes each way. Picture an 8-lane tunnel under your suburb. Most of stage 3 is under Leichhardt Annandale, so we're very nervous when we hear about the cracking of the homes and the things that are happening where the tunnelling is only 3 kilometres in. What are we going to be left with after 33 kilometres? Yeah, that's right. Now, in terms of what the timeframes, we think that the reference design for stage 3 will come out probably in the Easter break, because we know they like to release these things just before Christmas and over school holidays. So be prepared, be ready to get in there, to connect with your communities, to write submissions. There is a window of time to build up community awareness. Thank goodness Leslie has gotten in there and started this process now. Once that EIS is released, it's too late. Unless there is a fundamental flaw in the project at EIS stage, it will likely be approved by the Minister for Planning. Now, what is the EIS? The EIS is a really long technical document which addresses the Secretary's environmental assessment requirements. If you go to the major projects website, don't go to the WestConnex one. All that is a spin. Go to the major projects website. And it sets out the requirements that need to be addressed in the EIS. Now, what the EIS is supposed to do is to show you what the impacts are going to be and how they're going to minimise them. And what you need to do when you're responding is to show how that's not going to work and how it's not acceptable. Examples of the things that will be looked at. Transport and traffic. The proponent must assess construction, transport and traffic, vehicle, pedestrian, cyclist impacts, including but not necessarily limited to things like construction worker parking, all of those sorts of things. They have to talk about air quality, noise and vibration, the amenity of the area, health and safety, urban design, biodiversity, visual amenity and impacts on the environment. So it's very challenging for those of us who aren't familiar with really complex planning documents to sift through a massive EIS. What I know will be happening is that all the various groups will be getting together, they will be providing summaries and they will assisting people with the submissions. But it's really important that everybody put in a submission. It may be a process that's deeply flawed and may ultimately not be the thing that stops or slows this project. But if you don't put in submissions and you don't actually go through the detail, you make it much easier for them to push this project through. And what this project has been characterised by is this sense of urgency, this lack of transparency and pushing it through quickly. And what we need to do is we need to say stop, and we need to assess and analyse, and we need to run interference with the project. While I might be a lawyer, I can tell you right now, I've participated in 45 pickets in Leichhardt in the last 4 months. You know, we like to we like to get out there and support the people in St Peter's who have been camping out there for months. And while you might not be comfortable doing that, but it's really important because you have to there has to be a multi-pronged attack here. You need to work within the system, follow the processes, put the submissions in, write to the minister, but you also need to get out on the street and spread the word. In terms of non-violent direct action, it can be done. I've managed not to get arrested yet, although I can't say the same for everyone in the room. Now, in terms of consultation, they are required, the SMC is required to undertake community consultation. There will be information sessions at RSLs and various council venues. Go along to them. If you see people there who don't know what's going on, go over and inform them, because they're not going to get any information from the official representatives there that's meaningful. I guarantee you that. When we did our one consultation session on August the 13th last year, This is an example of what you're dealing with these people. They had posters up, and one of the posters was of all the schools in the area. And my daughter's school, incidentally 400 metres from the proposed dive site, wasn't on there. And they said, it's just an indicative map. And I said, my daughter's school's been there since 1870. How could you have missed it? It's just an indicative map. I apologise. So this is what you're dealing with. They released their engagement journey document for the M4, M5 link. You'll be surprised to hear in August. So apparently you have been engaged and you've gone through a journey. I called them out on that and I said, you have never sent a single communication to anyone in Camperdown or anyone in Leichhardt about a mid-tunnel point. There has been no engagement. How dare you dress it up and tell us we've been consulted with? How dare you do that? Now, back to the EIS. The EIS will come out probably mid-May. The reference design, which is more of a high-level document, will come out Easter Sunday, let's just say. After they release the design, they have committed to having a session to discuss the design. Go along to the session. This is an opportunity to point out flaws in the project and draw people in. Okay? There is still an opportunity here to influence. The other thing I would suggest is connecting in with your council. The council has the resources to do a very detailed submission, and encourage your council to do that. Anyone can put a submission in your personal capacity as a community group. Government departments can do submissions. There are a lot of issues, and I know Wendy and others who are very involved in getting 15,000 submissions in for the M4 East. There are a lot of issues with the entire way the process was run. Difficult to read the submissions. The whole process was a bit of a disaster. One of the things that we'll be looking at, Catherine and I, on the Community Reference Forum is addressing these sorts of issues and saying, lessons learned, guys, you're not doing it again, do it properly next time. They were going to release the design for this stage 2 weeks before Christmas. Okay, the final point I'd like to make is encourage all of you to get informed. Wendy Bacon is here today. Wendy is an investigative journalist and an academic who has written many articles about the issues with this process. I would encourage you to connect in online, talking to people and finding out more, because information really is power. I would also ask you to sort of make a commitment to yourself when you walk out of here to talk to at least one person about this and let people know. Even after 7 months of working in Leichhardt, of door knocking, of doing petitions, there are still many people who have no idea what is coming to them. Okay? So it's really, really important that you go out there and spread the message. And the other thing I would say in relation to the project and where we're at, I absolutely second the sentiments of Jenny that this is not a done deal. Okay? The M4, M5 link, they did it in stages to avoid having to explain the benefits of the overall project. Okay? They've done that. But this is not yet funded. It's not due to be approved at the earliest until the end of this year, and construction is still 2 years off, okay? And the other thing that I would say to you is fight them every time they come into your suburb. Every time they put a drill in your suburb, stand in front of it, park your car in front of it like we did, okay? We got most of the bottom part of Norton Street, we parked out a drill for a day and a half. You know, there have been people in our community in their 70s who have gone and stood in front of trucks and who've actually been a human shield to stop it. Because the more you delay it, the harder it is for them to meet their timeframes. The project cost further blows up. It becomes more of a toxic project and one that nobody else will touch in terms of funding and getting involved with. And we need to be always keeping that in mind. We have an election coming up in 2 years. In that period of time, we have got to get New South Wales State Labor committed to tearing up the contracts. We have got to do that. Okay? Those of you,
like WA.
yeah, exactly like WA, like the East-West link in Victoria. We have to delay it. We have to get to the next election, and we have to hold the ALP to account. They say they oppose stage 3. That is their official position. Hold them to it.